Robin says, when I lived in the South, I saw an individual therapist and a couples therapist that were both mediocre, to say the least. Most of the story is about the couples therapist we saw, but the individual therapist did something distinctly off-putting that I want to mention. I was seeing her when I was engaged to my husband and was feeling more suicidal than I ever had in my life. I knew at the time and explained to her that it was an escape fantasy. And I was thinking about it a lot, and I was even thinking about how I do it, even though I was not actually planning or really wanting to do it. She told me that the anxiety and stress I felt was normal and expected for anyone planning a wedding. Wedding planning was stressful, but that was far from the reason I was thinking about killing myself. And I'm not sure how she didn't get that. In a session or two after I told her about my suicidal ideation, she joked about it, saying something like, "See, now thinking about that feels pretty silly right now, right?" That sound effect was like perfect. That's Mercedes like covering her mouth.
Okay, I'm trying to stay calm and listen to the
Okay,
rest of
I
it.
got one more paragraph before we'll get your thoughts on it.
All right.
So Robin says in parentheses, she put, except when she said that. So see, now thinking about that feels pretty silly now, right? Except when she said that, she named the specific way I was thinking about doing it. So I guess she had shared some details.
Okay.
I'm leaving that detail out for the sake of your listeners. I appreciate that, Robin. Okay, so one more paragraph, and then we'll take a little break here. I think she says, I think she was maybe saying that to me in response to something positive I had said that day, like trying to show me that I was seeing my life, like trying to show me that I was seeing my life wasn't so bad, it needed to end. Oh, okay. But it felt so
Okay.
inappropriate and minimizing. In general, seeing her didn't seem to be helping much, so instead of confronting her about anything, I just quit seeing her after a while. Years later, I learned that therapists receive training in the difference between passive and active suicidality, so her not taking it remotely seriously has made more sense, but still, she says, but still. So, yeah, you covered your mouth, took a little beat back
Okay.
there.
Yeah.
What came to your mind, if you don't mind leading
It's
us
not
off?
okay. That is like what? Like, oh my gosh, like because she said that the therapist laughed at her, right? And
I,
then was kind of
yeah.
like, is that
Well,
what,
she said that
were those her
she
words?
joked about it, so it wasn't like laughing
She
at
joked
her like
about it,
maniacally, but it was like she joked about it. Yeah.
but joking about suicide to a person who felt suicidal actively and was vulnerable enough to bring that information to you for help and support,
No,
not
not so much.
okay. It's not okay. I think, like, for sure, okay. Because I'm thinking about it and, like, for sure, like, we have a thing amongst us therapists. Like, we joke about things that are probably inappropriate in the general public to joke about because I don't want to say desensitized, but we're just so, like, inundated with certain information, certain types of information that one of the ways we cope.
Yeah, it's like nurses have their own sense
Yeah,
of humor, police officers have their own sense of
exactly.
humor.
Exactly.
Yeah, doctors have
Exactly.
their own sense of humor. Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to joke about suicide with the client
No,
like soon after it sounds like it was a pretty soon after situation.
it
Like,
sounds
it
like it
doesn't
was
sound
like
like
the
it was
next
a
week. Yeah.
huge.
As,
Yeah, it's right. It's too soon. Like, if the client wants to joke about it, like after the fact, and it feels like an appropriate thing for them to do to cope with it, to kind of normalize it, whatever, I'll go along with that. But I'm not going to initiate it so soon after. It just feels so disrespectful.
yeah,
It
definitely.
feels disrespectful. It feels minimizing. It feels invalidating. Like, what a ridiculous thing for you to think about. Like, suicide, that's
Yeah,
so dumb for you to have, like, considered that. It just feels really, really inappropriate.
yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what my reaction was about.
No, totally. Yeah, so the way that it sounds like Robin interpreted this, and this is my impression of it as well, was like it's minimizing. It's like oh, it was more serious than just a wedding plan. It was more serious than
That
just
was the other part of it.
this one like facet of my life. There's more going on. I'm assuming, and I don't know Robin, and we have no idea. We're treating this just as like characters in a story. But yeah, I mean, it did sound minimizing. So it was like joking in a minimizing, dismissing kind of way is how I would take that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up the other point that I thought was odd. Like that's not the one that I was reacting to, but the idea that to make the jump from wedding planning
Oh yeah.
to that being the cause of the suicide, I hadn't even didn't enter my mind while you were explaining, like reading the story. So it's weird that the therapist made that jump, like, oh, wedding planning is so stressful, and that's why. I don't know. That's a weird thing.
It's that it does feel dismissive, and when people bring up suicide, I tend to take that pretty seriously. Like I
I
don't
mean,
freak out exactly,
yeah,
but I definitely don't dismiss it. I definitely want to learn more. I want to know what they're feeling,
yeah,
what they're thinking. Yeah, where are you at as far as planning and intention, and do you have the means to? So there's all these like suicide kind of assessment things that we can do.
yeah,
But I definitely don't want to not take it seriously. You know, if someone's to the point of like there's
right,
thoughts in their mind about death, we're
right.
already pretty far along on the spectrum of like perfectly well, you know, what my well-being is at
Right.
100% to, you know, I'm not alive
Right.
anymore. Like you're somewhere down that spectrum.
Well, and to feel as the client to feel that this is the solution, meaning
Right.
things feel so awful and so heavy and
Yeah.
so overwhelming right now that I can't see a different way out. This is the end all be all solution to whatever situation is happening in life. You know, that's a
Hmm.
big thing. It has to be taken seriously because there's a lot of pain there. There's a lot of emotional pain, hurt, you know, whatever stuff they've got going on that's big.
I never, I don't think any of us should assume that someone's at that point of considering not being alive anymore because of the specific context of their life in that moment, you know, or in that time. Like there's an accumulation of things that get someone to that point, I think.
Yeah.
Not just, I don't think it's just like a wedding
Yeah.
thing.
And obviously we don't have all the information, but it sounds like just from what we do have, it sounds like there could have been more exploration. Because if it is connected to the wedding planning, I don't want to invalidate that either. It just doesn't. I'm assuming there's more to it than that. And so for the therapist not to have
Yeah.
explored, and again, we don't have all the information, so maybe I'm assuming here, but to not further explore that, like, hey, what's going on? What do you think brought you here? You know what? Like, you know, just kind of getting into it. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Now, what, so this, Robin had said at the end there, I learned that therapists receive training in the difference between passive and active suicidality, which I guess that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah. I guess
Yeah.
we suppose we do, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember having it termed that way, but I understand, you know, what she's trying to say there. Yeah.
I've definitely, I think I've probably used those terms when like admin, like principals come to you and say, hey, this, like if a kid mentions suicide or like wanting to harm someone, they tend to like escalate and like freak out, like, oh my God. And so in my mind, I'm like,
Right.
well, slow down, hold up. Like, where are we at on that spectrum of, you know, it's just like an idea to they're planning it, they intend to do it, and there's a means, and it's like it's imminent. So for me, it's like if there's thoughts in their mind, yeah, I guess you could call that. It's not even, I don't even think I would call that passive suicidality because it's not. It's ideation.
To me it's like it's like I mean, you know, I think you can
Yeah.
call it ideation
Right.
if they say I'm going to kill
Yeah.
my like any version of that I think is ideation, but I think for me it's like sometimes especially when working with kids, sometimes it's more an expression of
Oh yeah.
feeling like I feel so awful that I want to die. But
Yeah.
there's the difference between expressing an emotion in pretty significant
Sure.
terms, pretty severe
Sure.
terms, or expressing an intent of action. You know, I intend to do this. Those are two different things.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think I've probably told, you know, the staff we work with, like they're not actively suicidal. Like it's not, you know, it's obviously a thought in their brain. It's something that we need to monitor and whatnot. But they're not at a point where they're actively going to act, you know, to act on that, right? So I've probably used those phrases. Yeah,
Actively
yeah.
act.
I think I've used that phrase before, but still, it's like, yeah, we got to treat it seriously. We don't dismiss this stuff.
It's like one of the big ones, you know? Like There's a few really big things that we're trained to kind of like never, like never ignore this. And suicide is one of them.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not something that you dismiss or put on the back burner. Yeah,
You don't mess around
yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I, of course, have a lot more stuff here on YouTube, but I also have even more on my website. It's justinlmft.com. I have a blog, I have a podcast, I have free resources, and I have some paid courses as well. Head on over to justinlmft.com. I think you'll like it a lot. This and other content I create is not therapy, not intended to be therapy or be a replacement for therapy. Nothing in this creates or indicates a therapeutic relationship. Please consult with your therapist or seek for one in your area if you are experiencing mental health symptoms. Nothing should be understood to be specific life advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only.